Welcome back to Timo's Dinky Detailing. Today I'm going to be taking an Austin A30 and converting it into a race car. Some of you may have seen this toy before. Just recently I restored this toy to original condition mostly, but I'm still a little bit bored with it and I decided I'm going to turn it into a race car. And you might ask where I got the idea. I was looking on the internet at for a different photograph, and instead what I found was the Austin A30 in pictures where they are racing them. And I thought, this is just awesome. I had no idea that these cars had ever been raced, and so I had no choice. I have to make this into a race car. So we start out with this toy that's in rough condition. It's not the greatest looking toy. It has those solid gray plastic wheels. So this is a short version of restoring the car from scratch. I start by taking the base off and I'm drilling it out with my really great drill. It's a 3/8 drill. It's way big for this, but actually I find it works just awesome. Now I'm moving it into the milling machine so that I can get these holes drilled and I can keep going in and out with the drill and not lose my position. I'm putting a lot of cutting fluid because this casting material is very chewy and it tends to build up on the tip of the drill bit, and I've broken the tip off of a couple of drill bits already. And so I don't want that to be happening because these drills are not the easiest to replace. They're number drills for my 440 tap, and I go in and tap these, and then I put in my button head screws, and that'll protect the tapped hole. And then during the process of painting, my screws will get painted as well. So I mix up the paint, match the color, and I got a pretty darn good match. And I put in my leveling thinner and get it to the consistency that lets me put it into the airbrush later on. So now I got to strip the paint off of this thing. It goes outside, a little boiling water and some caustic soda. A few minutes later, and the paint is stripped off. Now I go at it with a brass bristle wire brush. I like to do it by hand. It's quieter, and maybe it's not as good as doing it with the Dremel tool, but I don't annoy everybody in the house because that's a very noisy tool. And this is a shot you might remember before. My spray booth was home to a spider. We've got spider webs in there. So that's the primer goes on, and now I put my yellow paint that I put into the jar, and I give it a nice several coats of the yellow. Then for some detailing, here's where I'm using these little cool brushes on the back end of the brush. These are for painting fingernails. Supposed to be using fingernail varnish, and it's for decorating the nails. And these little balls on the opposite end of a brush are for making dots. And so this car happens to have the little round tail lights, which are little dots, and so that worked very well on them. This is paint from a paint marker. It's not the chrome one. I'm trying to make it a little bit more like the original model. So the original one didn't have a chrome-like paint, but the metallic style paint. So that's the paint that I'm using on these bumpers. Now this is the other end. This is the fingernail painting brush, and I just love it. This is speeded up, so I'm doing this very carefully and slowly, but I got all of these things done and I didn't miss a beat. Every single one came out perfect, and I attribute part of that to this really nice brush. It's very short little bristles, and I think that's why it's easier for me to control, and I can get my fingers closer to the brush as well, so it's a little more steady. Here I slow it back down to normal speed. You can see the speed I actually painted these at. Now for tires, I want to have racing tires, so I want to get some Hot Wheels, because if I buy the fancy tires online, they look great, they're very expensive, and I thought, okay, I can go to the dollar store. These Hot Wheels are $1.50. This one I don't think is a big sacrifice. It's a plastic body. It's a toy. It's designed to join up with Lego. So I can sacrifice that and not feel too guilty about it. And now I got to get these axles out of the cast base. So turns out those things are pretty difficult to get off. So I go to the side cutters and I spend a few minutes hacking away at this thing. It's not the most elegant way to get these things off, but maybe I could have used a Dremel tool, but again, would have made a lot of noise. So I just kept going at it until I removed enough material that I could pop that axle out of there. There it goes. And then I do the other end. This one has larger tires at the back and smaller ones at the front. I looked at the race cars, so I got two of these Hot Wheels. Here I'm testing it out with the big ones in the back and the small ones in the front. In the end, I put the small ones on the front and the back. So I've been having a lot of trouble with putting the decals on, and so I decided I'm going to go so nuts with the decals that I'm going to learn to do it, and with a lot of practice. So this is going to be also a practice car. So I'm using the technique I developed earlier. This is decal material with that's white background, and I haven't printed anything on it. I sprayed it with the clear lacquer spray, and I'm going to put just a white background, because when you use a clear decal, you're just going to see the paint through it. So I'm putting a white background on it, and I put some of Mr. Soft on there, and I also cut those notches because I need it to conform to that very, very curved roof surface. So this let me do that, and then I realized I'm going to have to fill in those little cuts I made. And this is how I'm doing the flag. Now this is the flag printed on clear decal paper, and it will just go on top of the white. But I actually put one on, and I found that you can see that notch right through the blue. So I have to fill those notches with the white. I think if I had to do over again, I probably would have tried to put that decal on the roof in one piece. With the Mr. Soft, it might have worked just fine. But this worked out well anyway. The nice thing about these 4 triangles is they're very easy to conform to the curve of the roof, and I don't have to use the Mr. Soft on them. I can just put them on as ordinary decals, as if they're on flat. So you can see a lot of practice for me. I still can't help it. I need to use my thumb most of the time putting these on. I've tried different techniques. I think I try on this one using a cotton bud. No, it's on the next one. But my thumb just seems to work better. One of the tricks I'm using is I'm not using ordinary water. I've put a drop of dishwashing soap, Palmolive if you want to know, and it makes the water stay on the model when you put it on, so that it doesn't, because when you put just plain water, it tends to bead up on the paint. But a little bit of soap and it doesn't bead, it spreads out nice and smooth and stays there. And that way the decal is on water, not straight onto the paint, and that way it doesn't stick right away to the paint, and then you're screwed. And if you watch my earlier videos, you'll see what happens when that goes wrong. Now these are some decals I bought from a supplier in Australia. They look swell. The only problem is they're similar to they're on clear paper, and that was a little bit of a disappointment to find that out. And I found it out when I put this decal on, and I go, wait a minute, I can see right through, and there's no white in the background. So they're using an inkjet printer too, and they can't print white. Okay, the first decal from this sheet that caught my eye was actually this one, Magneti Marelli, and I decided that's going to look beautiful on the boot or the trunk lid. So I think that looks just great. Now I'm going to my little clamp here. There's a magnetic clamp bolted to the bench. And now what I'm doing, because there's no white in my decals, I've made numbers. And the numbers are going to be white on a black field. So I've put white for the number, and here's my number going on. And it's a clear decal. If I put that without that white behind, it would be yellow, yellow number 6, which wouldn't look right. But this is a pretty simple technique, and it's working out pretty well. So I speed this up a little bit and step through, so you're not seeing me mount every decal. I'm basing some of the placement of these advertisements based on a little bit on the pictures of the actual race cars. I didn't mention it before, but obviously this is a Scottish flag. It's a Cross of St. Andrew, and one of the cars that I found online had this big flag on the roof, and I thought that looks just fantastic. And here we got the speeded up snap version, putting the decals on. Rollout, that's for a fan that requested I do something with rollout, so I've come right out and put it there. This is the perfect model for it. I don't know where I would. That's rollout is, in case you don't know, is from the Transformers. And so I thought that'll go well on the race car. A little bit of crossover fans maybe. My niece and nephews will like it. They're big fans of the Transformers. I wanted this thing to be in rock solid position and have them all appear as if they're by magic. But it jumped around a little bit because I kept kicking the tripod and such. Now for the headlights, the racing cars all have their headlights taped, and I guess that's so if they, in an accident, the glass will be held together a little bit instead of smashing into little bits everywhere. or maybe the big sharp shards there would worry about cutting somebody. So they have tape over the headlights. That was very, very delicate work to get those things to work. Now I got advice from another viewer that I'm doing the number plates wrong. In the 40s, the number plates had usually a square plate on the front, on the driver's side wing. And again, I have to use the white first, and then I put my black and clear number plate over top of the white and center it properly and align it. And on this one I originally had a white rear plate with black letters. That's wrong. It needs to be black with well, silver on the back, but I put white there. I figure that's close enough. And now I'm gone off to building a base. If you've been watching my videos, I've done this before. So basically I trace off with a piece of paper the shape that the base needs to be. Now I happen to have the actual base. I need to make a new base because the wheels I'm putting on are thicker than the wheels on the original base, and I don't want to damage the original base. So I'll just make a custom base for this one. So I measure up everything so I get my correct sizes, and then I make the so I can make the sheet metal. And here I've measured the gap that I'm going to need. Now I got to figure out where my holes are going to go. And this is a piece of aluminum. This is from some window trim that I could buy at Home Depot, and I've cut it roughly to shape, and then I go with my file in the vise, and I do a lot of filing, and I go back and I measure it from time to time and compare it with the width of the original base. So you can see how close I am to this one, just a tiny bit bigger. Now I've got to match that curve on the front, so I just trace it with a pencil. This is a tool called a nibbler, and it lets you cut little tiny cuts like it's a little shear. And that's really great for these small jobs with sheet metal. So I get the general shape, and then I work it with the file. And I did it a few times. I had to go back and forth and get it just right. So once I had it right, then I've got to get my holes in the right place. And I had traced the holes off of the casting. And this is a spring-loaded center punch. So that's so I can drill in the right place. Now I measure my hole, and I go and get a number drill from my drill index, and I look for the size I need, which is 136 thou, and into the drill press. First I drill the hole with the center drill because the big drill is more likely to wander, and then I put my sizing drill, and I know it's always going to be perfectly on center. These holes worked out absolutely perfectly. Now I'm looking to get some smaller tin snips for doing these jobs. These are the full-size ones, and I tend to overcut with them. In this case I can get by because it's the base, it's on the bottom, it's not really going to be seen very much. Now I've got to make, there's really tricky double bends in the base, and so this is a very finicky job. I mean, you would have to have the tiniest box and pan brake in order to fold this up properly, but fortunately it's just aluminum, it's very soft, so I can go in here with my little parallel pliers, and they have nice straight and points on them so that they're ground flat, so it's perfect for bending the shape I need. So that's that tough bend. Now these are the little flanges that hold the wheels in place. And so I cut those down to size, and then I can bend the rest of there's a second bend, and I can do that now. And I just do it with my ground down parallel pliers. Now the front has another double bend. You can see I'm just going to try and match that. And I don't know what I would do without these parallel pliers. I guess I would have to go and buy something like that. So to get the second bend, I'm kind of relying on that first bend not unbending, because when you bend metal, it hardens. So that's why when you bend it and you go, oops, I want to straighten it out again, you'll never get it straight again because the metal hardens. It's work hardening. So you bend it once and that bend is strong. It's not going to want to bend in the same place. So in this case, I was able to bend it into another place. So there we have it. It fits in there just perfectly. So into the spray booth, and I'm putting on my favorite paint. It's a semi-gloss. It's just the hardware store paint, but it always gives me a really good finish. So that's what I'm putting on there. So for the wheels, the length of the axle for the front is just fine, so I can use the front one, but the back one, I need to trim them down. So I put them side by side and then mark it off. And then cut it off with my side cutters. So now I've got two segments of axle, and I don't have a proper way of holding them in. Hot Wheels do their wheels completely differently from a Dinky toy, so I'm just going to glue mine in. So to make sure that I'm going to have space between the wheel and the base, I'm putting in little paper shims that will be there to make sure that there's at least enough space so that the wheel won't be pressing onto the frame when I glue them, because I'm going to be using epoxy, and the epoxy is going to harden and I won't know if it's tight enough. So I put those paper shims in there so I can just pull those out afterwards. So I'm using my usual dollar store epoxy, 5-minute epoxy, and I put it on there. Now these things, look at how much they move. I need to figure out how to get them so that they'll be straight and glued in and stay straight. So first I'm pushing the axles in all the way so they're as deep as they can go, so they won't be loose on the axle. And then I'm putting a parallel clamp. This is a machinist clamp. And you tighten both screws. You can't see me tightening that left screw, but it's off camera, but I'm turning it. And then the jaws move parallel. So 5 minutes later, take it off and take out these little paper shims. And now they spin just nicely. Perfect. Now on this one, I'm going to go back to one of my old tricks. I'm going to put windows in. So I've made a paper template, and I've got this plastic that comes from, you can get it from different packaging. These ones come off of packaging for some soap dispensers that my wife gets at Costco. So it's nice clear plastic. It's easy to work with, cut with scissors. And so I just cut it to the size of the template I made out of paper, and then fold it. And Here you can see I've created that shape. And then I fold it up and I've put some double-sided foam tape this time and glue it in, and that's pretty straightforward. So there we have it. It has windows. So time to put it together. Put the front axle in, and then the base with the rear wheels. You can see it fits perfectly. So get both of those cap screws back in, and she's ready. So let's remind you what we started out with. So this is this kind of sad looking car. The back end is bent down, so it really looks worn out. And let's see what it looks like now. Beautiful, well decorated car. That'll catch your eye on the race course. Got a Scottish driver, and we hope he's going to win. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of Timo's Dinky Detailing. Please remember to like and share and subscribe, and that's how you get more of these videos. So until next time, be seeing you.